Once the engine was out of the Wildcat, it was time to clean it. I'd put a ladder in the engine bay and reach everything I could with cleaner. But then I started to get piles of parts that were just looking old, ratty, and greasy. I also had exhaust manifolds, and they definitely looked old and crusty. So those were the first things that I took care of. The first thing that I tried was Evaporust has a gel, and I figured, hey, instead of having to buy gallons upon gallons of Evaporust, let's try to use this gel and put it on and see if that will work better. I should be able to have it stick to the manifolds and not come off. The first thing that I notice is that this stuff, I don't know if it's suspended in animal fat, I don't know what it is, but it is super thick, does not want to come out of the container. This stuff was thicker than molasses, and I'm using both hands, and it barely wants to come out. And when it comes out, a lot of people on Amazon reviews describe it as coming out like snot, and I don't disagree. So I'm trying to use my fingers to press it in, and it works okay, but it is just really, really hard to do. This is a time lapse of after I got it all rubbed in, it going through the process of drying. Now, once this dries, it'll leave a residue, and even Evaporust says that it's got to be cleaned. So I've got a sink in my workshop, and I've got a brush, so why make it hard on myself and just take it to the sink. My second attempt with the gel is I thought maybe it was not mixed well, so I thought I'll get all of it out and I'll put it in a container and I will mix it up. And I ended up cutting the container open because there's just no way that it was going to come out of the top. So there's a little bit of liquid, a lot of solids within it, and here's the plop. So I mix it up really good with my hand like it's cookie dough to make sure that I've got the most product that I can on there. And I go to spread it. This is the second time I've now tried to do it. These are the results once it has worked. I really don't like them. It didn't get all the rust off, and it left its coating on the left side. Is it brown? No. But is it derusted the way that it should be? No. I just end up buying a few more gallons of the Evaporust that comes in the container, and I pour that into a trash bag. I put other bottles around it to keep the liquid by the manifold, and that works. I've always known that it works. I was just trying to use Evaporust in another way, and the other way didn't work. So this is it right out of the bath. I've still got to go clean that off, but it looks nice, and it got the rust off there. And once I get done, I like to spray stuff in fluid film. It keeps things from rusting. But what I found out when I researched, okay, I've got it on there and now I want to paint that. What do you need to do to get it off? Unfortunately, the way you get it off is with the pressure washer. So out comes the pressure washer to get all the fluid film out of all those cast iron pores. So I've got the bolts that go in the exhaust manifold. They had fluid film on them as well. So I put them on a board for them to get pressure washed as well. Here is my goodie box here. This is $160 worth of paint from the Eastwood company. Eastwood is not a sponsor, but I do like their products. They work well. I got 2 cans of their high build self-etching primer. I got a can of Underhood Black low gloss finish, 20% gloss. And this is detail gray. I only shot one thing with detail gray so far. And this is a $32 can of the high temperature coating factory gray for exhaust manifolds, which I'm going to be putting on my manifolds. So the first thing I do is I always used Eastwood's pre-painting prep. Smells like mineral spirits. I've got a Bondo tack cloth that did not work well in this instance with the cast iron. It was just so rough. I ended up going over with paper towels. But everything that I do paint, after sanding, this is going to be the first step to get everything off that should not be on there. Same thing with the bolts for the manifolds. Once those have been pressure washed and I was ready to coat them, it was time to clean them. I used a paper towel this time because that tack rag had just died a horrible death and wasn't usable. This is also getting wiped down. This eliminates a butterfly valve in the exhaust that just always got choked up. I'm showing you where this sits down here because this is going to be a section I don't paint at the bottom because you're not going to see it, and I don't want it to interfere with the fit of the manifold. I'm putting the coating on these bolts. After I had coated all these bolts, I went ahead and I ran them through a nut to make sure that I didn't have the threads just full of the compound here. So I got both sides. I did 2 coatings with it with a paintbrush. This is me coating that butterfly replacement that you see here. You can see the brush strokes, but it's going to be against something else. So while the human eye can see them from underneath the car, you're not going to be able to see them. Starting on the manifold here, this had come out of the oven from drying. It says the product and the environment should be between 55 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's see, and the manifolds are at 92.4 degrees. I would say that they are ready to take paint. This stuff mixes, and you can see there's, it doesn't mix all the way together, but when it paints out, it looks just fine. So the manifolds I attempted with a sponge. They say that the sponge, I believe they quote, may break down. The sponge definitely will break down, no question. But with the sponge, of course, you don't get any brush marks, and it seems to have worked well on the cast. Next, it says that you have got to let it run on the car. I chose to bake it at 400 degrees. They say it may release toxic fumes when it dries. It smells terrible. Stay away from it. Hold your breath. I've got an oven, so I'm able to do this in my workshop, but it's still very well ventilated. This is the final result, and they look great. They look fabulous. I've got a box here full of brackets and pulleys. On the right side are brackets that hold the alternator and the air conditioning compressor. On the left side are pulleys for the various things. Power steering is in the back, and you can see it's just seen much better days. The quickest way that I know to get this taken care of is take it to the blasting cabinet. I've got access to one where I basically pay by the minute to use it, and you cannot get old coatings removed faster than a blasting cabinet. It's not good for some things. I didn't take the power steering pump to it because I don't want to get media down into it. Same thing with the air conditioning muffler. But if I could take it to the blast cabinet, I did take it to the blast cabinet because it is just so quick for what it does. this is the fan, and it was definitely the largest thing that I blasted that took the most time. But it had some rust around the edges of the blades, and so it was just much easier. Everything comes out of the cabinet, wonderful, ready to go. This is my water pump pulley because of where it was in the car and its life. It's got a lot of pitting, but man, everything comes out of the blasting cabinet, and it's just gorgeous. I get my air hose out when I take it home. I'm wearing breathing protection, and I blast out any media. Once that is done, I've got a painting buck that I put together, and it gets about 5 light coats of the Eastwood high build primer. They say that less coats is better than more coats. So I've got everything laid out there. Power steering pump done after I sanded that whole thing down to metal. And once the primer is on there, everything gets wet sanded. So this primer, it just gives a little bit of a rough finish unless you sand it. I'm shooting the single camera mode, so I don't usually sand like that. That's the AC muffler. Once that everything got sanded, wiped down, dried again, it gets 2 medium coats of that Eastwood paint. They say 2 medium coats underhood black, and that just gives a great overall finish, and so that's how I put it on there. Once all the parts dry, they just look amazing. These are all those pulleys. You remember the power steering pump pulley from the beginning that was just kind of a train wreck? It turned out wonderfully as well. I really like the amount of gloss this paint has. I like the coverage as well. This is the blower motor and the plenum. Stay tuned for next episode. Thank you for watching.